The winter that year was the coldest anyone in the Ashvale pack could remember. Snow buried the fences, froze the rivers solid, and turned the forest into a silent world of white. In a small, broken cabin at the very edge of that forest lived a young Omega named Elara. She was the lowest-ranked member of the whole pack, and everyone treated her that way. She worked from morning until night, yet she was given the smallest share of food. Most of the time, the others acted as if she did not exist at all. Elara had not always been alone. Once, she had a mother who sang while cooking, and a father who carried her on his shoulders through the trees. But sickness had taken them both when she was young, and after that, the pack no longer had a place for her at their table. They sent her to the old cabin at the edge of the woods, the one no one else wanted, and left her to survive on the scraps they threw away. On this particular night, the wind howled like a living thing. Elara sat close to her tiny fire, counting the last few strips of dried meat she had left. There were only 3. She wrapped her thin blanket tighter around her shoulders and stared into the flames, wondering quietly if she would live to see the spring flowers bloom again. She was tired, colder than she had ever been, and terribly hungry. Yet even then, she did not cry. She had learned long ago that crying changed nothing. When the fire began to shrink, Elara knew she had no choice. She pulled on her worn boots, wrapped a scarf around her face, and stepped out into the freezing dark to gather more wood. The snow reached her knees, and every breath felt like ice in her chest. She worked quickly, snapping dry branches from the fallen trees and stacking them in her arms. It was on her way back that she saw it. At first, she thought it was a large rock covered in snow, but as she came closer, she saw fur, dark as midnight, rising and falling with slow, weak breaths. It was a wolf, larger than any she had ever seen. Its ribs showed through its thin sides, its fur was matted with ice, and one of its front paws was torn and stained red. The great animal lay collapsed in the snow, only a few steps from her door, so still that she almost believed it was already dead. Elara's heart pounded. Every part of her mind screamed that she should run. A wolf that size, even a weak one, could end her life in a single moment. She had nothing to protect herself, and no one would come to help her if she cried out. The smart thing, the safe thing, was to hurry inside, bolt the door, and forget she had ever seen it. But then the wolf opened its eyes. They were golden, deep and clear, and they looked at her with something she did not expect. There was pain in those eyes, yes, but there was also a strange, quiet understanding, as if the creature knew exactly how alone and afraid she felt. In that moment, Elara saw not a monster, but a living thing suffering in the cold, just as she was. She could not walk away. Dropping her firewood, she knelt beside the great animal. "Easy now," she whispered. "I am not going to hurt you." The wolf did not growl or snap. It simply watched her, too weak to move. Elara wrapped her arms around its massive body and pulled with all her strength. It took a long time, and she nearly gave up more than once, but slowly, inch by inch, she dragged the heavy creature across the snow and through her cabin door. Inside, she laid it on the warmest spot near the fire, the very place where she usually slept. She fetched a cloth and warm water and gently cleaned the wound on its paw, then wrapped it carefully with a strip torn from her own blanket. The wolf flinched but allowed her to work. When she was finished, she looked at the 3 small pieces of dried meat sitting on her shelf. She had been saving them for herself, and they were all the food she had in the world. Without a second thought, she gave 2 of them to the wolf. "There," she said softly, watching it eat. "You need it more than I do." That night, Elara slept on the cold floor with only her scarf for warmth, while the great wolf rested by the fire. Yet strangely, she did not feel afraid. For the first time in a very long time, she did not feel alone. The days that followed changed her quiet, lonely life completely. Each morning, she woke and cared for the wolf, cleaning its wound and sharing whatever food she could find. She spoke to it as she worked, telling it about her day, her memories of her parents, and her small hopes for the future. She named it Shadow because of its dark fur and the way it stayed close to her, like a shadow that had finally decided to keep her company. Shadow grew stronger with surprising speed. Within days, The wound on its paw had almost completely healed, faster than any injury should. Elara did not think much of it. She was simply happy that her friend was recovering. She did not notice how the wolf's golden eyes seemed to follow her every movement with a sharp, thoughtful intelligence. She did not notice how it seemed to understand her words, tilting its head when she spoke, and resting its great head on her lap when she grew sad. She only knew that she loved having Shadow near, and that the cabin no longer felt so empty. What Elara could not have known was the truth hidden beneath that dark fur. The wolf was not truly a wolf at all. He was Kale, the alpha king of the entire region, the strongest and most respected leader in all the lands. Weeks earlier, a jealous rival clan had used dark magic to place a terrible curse upon him. The spell had trapped him in the body of a beast, and worse still, it slowly ate away at his human mind. With every passing night, he felt himself forgetting more of who he was. He remembered less of his name, his people, and his life. Soon, the man would be gone forever, and only the beast would remain. His pack had been searching for him desperately, following his trail through the frozen woods, but the snow had covered his tracks. Weak, wounded, and losing hope, Kale had collapsed in the storm, certain that his end had come. And then a poor, thin Omega girl had knelt beside him in the snow and refused to leave him to die. There was one small hope buried within the curse, though Kale himself had nearly forgotten it. The witch who cast the spell had said, almost mockingly, that the curse could only be broken by one thing, a true act of pure, selfless kindness, given to the beast by someone who did not know the man beneath the fur, and who expected nothing in return. For weeks, Kale had believed such kindness did not exist in the world. He had been a king. Everyone who was ever kind to him had wanted something in return, power, favor, or protection. But now, in this tiny broken cabin, a girl who had almost nothing was giving him everything she had. She shared her last food. She gave up her warm place by the fire. She spoke to him with gentleness when the whole world had shown her only cruelty, and she did all of it without knowing he was anyone at all. She was breaking the curse without even trying, and she had no idea. One morning, Elara woke feeling weak and dizzy. She had given so much of her food to Shadow that there was almost nothing left for herself. She tried to rise from the floor, but her body would not obey her. The room spun around her, and her skin burned with fever. She had pushed herself too far, sharing her small meals until there was nothing left to keep her own strength up. With a soft sound, she slipped from the edge of the fire and collapsed onto the cold floor, her eyes closing. The wolf was at her side in an instant. Kale pressed his great head against her, whining, pushing at her shoulder, trying to wake her, but she did not stir. Her breathing was shallow, her face pale. Panic unlike anything he had ever felt rose within him. This girl, who had saved him, who had asked for nothing, was now fading before his eyes, and he could do nothing to help her as a beast. He could not lift her. He could not speak to her. He could not fetch help. In that moment, something inside him broke free. A desperate, powerful will surged through his body, stronger than the curse, stronger than the magic that had held him for weeks. He did not care about the throne. He did not care about the crown. He cared only about saving the girl who had saved him. His whole heart bent toward one single wish, to help her, to protect her, no matter the cost. And the curse shattered. Golden light burst through the small cabin, warm and bright. When it faded, the great wolf was gone. In its place knelt a tall man with dark hair and those same golden eyes, cradling the unconscious Omega in his strong arms. Kale had returned to his human form for the first time in weeks, and it was her kindness that had brought him back. He worked quickly. He found what little food remained and warmed it, then gently coaxed water past her lips. He wrapped her in the blanket and held her close to the fire, sharing his warmth. For hours, he stayed by her side, whispering to her, the way she had whispered to him, telling her that she was safe now, that he would not leave her. When Elara finally opened her eyes, the fever had broken, but instead of her wolf, she saw a stranger. She gasped and tried to move away, confused and frightened. "Who are you?" she whispered. "Where is Shadow? Where is my wolf?" The man smiled gently, and there was something so familiar in his golden eyes that her heart skipped. "I am Shadow," he said quietly, "or at least, I was. My true name is Kael." Slowly, carefully, he explained everything. He told her of the curse, of the rival clan, of the long weeks trapped as a beast. He told her that her kindness, freely given without any thought of reward, had done what no warrior or healer could do. It had broken the spell and saved his very soul. Elara could hardly believe it. She had fed a dying wolf and cared for it, never dreaming that she was healing the most powerful king in all the lands. She looked at Kael, this man who had been her only friend through the coldest winter of her life, and found that she was not afraid. He was still Shadow. He was still the one who had rested his head on her lap and kept her company in the lonely dark. But their peace did not last. Far away, the rival clan felt the curse break. They knew their dark magic had failed, and they were furious. Within days, they marched toward the borderlands to finish what they had started, determined to destroy Kael before he could reclaim his strength. The sound of their approach echoed through the frozen woods, and the sky grew dark with the threat of the coming storm. Kael stood before the cabin, still weak but unbowed. "You must run, Elara," he said. "You have already given me more than I deserve. I will not let them harm you." But Elara shook her head firmly. "I did not save you just to leave you now," she said. "You were there for me when no one else was. I will stand with you." And so she did. When the rival clan arrived, Elara stood beside the king who had once been her freezing wolf. She was only a small Omega, thin and untrained, but her courage burned as brightly as her kindness. Kael fought to protect the cabin that had become his sanctuary, drawing on strength he did not know he still had, while Elara refused to leave his side. Just when it seemed the danger was greatest, the ground trembled with the sound of many paws. Kael's pack had finally found him, drawn by the return of his power. They poured out of the trees, strong and loyal, and turned the tide of the battle. The rival clan, seeing that their chance was lost, scattered and fled into the woods, defeated and shamed. The threat that had hung over the land for so long was finally broken. When it was over, Kael turned to his people, who bowed low before their returned king. But he did not stand alone. He reached out and took Elara's hand, drawing her forward so that all could see her. "This is Elara," he announced, his voice ringing clear. "She is an Omega you cast aside and forgot. Yet when I lay dying in the snow, a stranger and a beast, she gave me her last food, her warmth, and her friendship, asking for nothing in return. Her kindness saved my life, and freed my soul when all your magic and all your armies could not. She is the bravest and truest heart I have ever known." The pack stared in astonishment at the girl they had ignored for so long. And before them all, Kael knelt before Elara and asked her to stand beside him, not as a servant or an outcast, but as his chosen mate and queen. Elara, the Omega who had once had nothing, who had lived alone in a broken cabin at the edge of the woods, could hardly believe her ears. Tears filled her eyes, but this time they were tears of joy. She had given kindness to a dying creature, never expecting anything back, and in doing so, she had found not only a friend, but a home, a family, and a love she had never dared to dream of. As spring came at last, and melted the terrible snow, the flowers bloomed brighter than ever across the Ashvale lands, and Elara understood the truth that had carried her through the darkest winter of her life. True kindness, given freely and without expectation, is the rarest and most powerful magic of all. It had saved a king, broken a curse, and turned a forgotten girl into a queen. In the end, the smallest heart had proven to be the greatest of them all.